Hello and welcome to the Her Effect podcast. I'm Jaime Cross, your host, and we're going to dive into a topic today that I know is going to empower you and give you some real practical understanding and principles that you can apply no matter what stage of business you're in right now, whether you're in the very beginning or you're further along in your entrepreneurial journey. But these are some things I'm going to share with you, basically 3 things that I did to help move the needle forward as I was growing my company with small children, nursing, pregnant, all the different layers and things that go into building a business as a mom. One thing we always have to remember, and I've been thinking about this a lot as I've been thinking about the different stories and the whole big picture. And even now what I'm doing, I've thought to myself, if I could go back, there's some things that I would have done differently. And then even today, as we're growing and building, I'm continuing to modify and do more and do better. So let's dive in here. So there are 3 specific things that I know are going to apply to every story. And these are things that if you take the time to really implement, they will give you some peace and clarity. And I believe ultimately, as wives and mothers and entrepreneurs, women who are building at all these different stages, one of the things that we need to do is protect peace. And so there are things that I've done because of the way I operate that has protected peace in the home. And there's going to be things that you do that you're going to need to think about and plan around in order to give yourself peace as you grow and build. And I don't necessarily mean a state of external peace. Order is one thing. Of course, we want to have clarity and order, and those things are practical things that we can create. But I'm talking more about an internal state of peace as you build and grow. And that comes through a series of disciplines. You can actually discipline yourself to become a peaceful person. Peace is also a fruit of the Spirit, having and operating in peace for sure. But if we're not taking the time to discipline our mind, discipline our thoughts, and even create disciplined actions, we will be living in an internal state of constant chaos. And we don't have to live that way. We can build and grow and have littles and have a sense of internal peace, even though everything around us sometimes might feel chaotic. So let's dive in here. The first thing that I started to do, and in the beginning, when I had this vision to start this skincare company, and the very first product I formulated was a bar of soap. And once I was ready to really hit the ground running, and even in the beginning, the very beginning stages, I went through multiple iterations before I finally got to the point where I was actually doing the formulating. The first month and a half or so, I was kind of trying to figure out all these other ways to come up with a product. And so I started off with extreme confidence in the sense that I knew I was choosing a market that people would buy from. And this is actually a side note. This is not part of the 3 secrets or three keys that I want to share with you. But one of the really key things is that as you're building, you want to be confident that you're creating a product line that there is demand for, because we will struggle in business if we're creating products that people don't want to buy from us. If there's no market for it. And as we're building our businesses, we want to be in a premium market. And so one of the things that I always built with confidence is because I knew that everyone needed soap, and everyone eventually, when I had our body bars, we used to call them lotion bars, when I had those products and when I had balms, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was in a market that had great demand. And so I knew that eventually the time would come when the money would come, all the things would happen for our benefit. And so make sure that as you're growing and you're building, and especially if you're getting started, make sure that you're choosing a market that there is great demand for. Otherwise, you could potentially be in a place of constant stress and struggle and not knowing. And so know going into your industry that there is a demand and a market for it. So once I had that, I had my product, decided I knew I was going to formulate a bar of oatmeal spearmint soap, which, by the way, was magnificent when I finally poured that first batch. But it took me a good 11 months to research. It was product and market research. It was chemistry, studying, consistently. But the first thing that I did in order to create a sense of order was I got alignment with Nathan. And so I sat down with Nathan and I said, here's my vision. This is what I'm looking to do. And I would give him consistent updates. This is what I'm working on this week. Expect that I'm going to be up early in the mornings, during nap times, weekends. I'm going to have to be working on XYZ in order to be able to take this product to market, in order to be able to actually finish the formulation process. Whatever phase I was in, I was consistently communicating with Nathan and casting vision and getting alignment from him so that there was no surprises, as little as possible anyway. So even when we got into farmers markets, Nathan was heavily involved. In the first couple of years, it was mostly me making product, going out and just peddling soap and slinging soap on the streets and walking into shops and talking to store owners and buyers, and all the while, if I had to call my mom to get help to have her drive twice a week, she would drive all throughout the state of Colorado with me, and the boys would be in the back seat, and I was nursing one of them. So I would be coming back into the car nursing, and she would drive, and we'd go grab, we'd probably pack a lunch at that time. And so if you have a family member that you can maybe get help from, and I remember telling Mom, one day I'm going to take care of you. And she was bought into the vision as well. Or, I would pay for her gas, and whatever you need to do to get those first seasons. So for me, it was getting my husband on board and casting vision and giving him updates and sharing with him, this is the fruit that I'm expecting over this next month or these coming weeks, as you see me kind of in the shadows, just head down in the foxhole, working really diligently. So it was mom during the day, and entrepreneur. I had to wear all the different hats, and wife, and all. There was never a moment where I was wasting time. And so that was really key for me, was being productive in my work. I didn't have 40, 50, 60 hours a week to be doing things. And so every moment I could take to build, I was doing that, and Nathan was bought in. And then when we had farmers markets, Nathan and I there were times when we would be up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, labeling product, finishing product, and he would be color coding all the different boxes for the different markets, making sure that everything was, organized for me and ready to go. And we worked together side by side, and he had a job at that time. He was teaching and wrestling and coaching, and so we had work ethic, and that's really very key. Diligence and work ethic and hard work is so critical. Don't think that we can just, I look at it like we're running a series of sprints, and we're running a marathon, and we're Olympic athletes as entrepreneurs, and we have to show up, and we have to practice, and we have to do the things so that we can be excellent in our craft. And so getting alignment there was number one. Number two was I planned my work, and I worked my plan. And so I always had an understanding of what I needed to do every single day and every single week and every single month in order to move the needle forward. I was very clear on my vision and my plan, and I had it written down. And so, the scriptures talk about write the vision down, make it plain, and although the vision might tarry, wait for it, because you will reap a harvest if you don't give up. And so there is something incredible that happens when we begin to write down the plans. And I can look back on my early journals and early notes, and even like sticky notes that I would write down prayers. And I've checked off a lot of those early days of just goals and prayers, and those things we've done. And so my plans and my prayers have gotten bigger. So I planned my work. I always had a plan of what I needed to execute on. And then I just worked the plan, and I stayed dedicated. And it was like you get into a cadence and to a rhythm of managing your time. And trust me, I didn't have anybody cleaning my house for me. I didn't have a babysitter. There were times, we went through a couple months where we had girls who would come in and help for short seasons, and girls from the church. But ultimately, like, those first 8 years of building was Nathan and I just getting on the same page and doing the work. And the third thing was I had an out-of-the-box strategy and understanding of how we wanted to raise our boys, I knew that we would be more in the unschooling category. And so I wasn't really big on like 8-hour a day curriculums and school at home. I knew that I wanted to train my boys up differently. And so letting them see me work and giving them tasks and projects and letting them play a lot and imagine things. And I look for opportunities to create teachable moments throughout our day, all day, every day. And whether it was doing the dishes or making breakfast or going out, if we had to run errands, or sometimes we would go visit Nathan at the school, whatever it was that we were doing, I was always bringing in these teachable moments when they were little. And so I wasn't super stressed out about whether they were going to learn to read at 3 years old. And then when the time came when I knew that they were really ready to like start learning to read and start doing some of these other reading, writing, arithmetic, all of that, we would bring in some tools. And so there's some really great apps for littles to learn how to read, and I just would make it fun. And then as they've gotten older, so the boys were, my oldest it was 2017 when our business really took off. And so Judo he was 9 years old. So he was born in 2008. So 2007. Yes. So he was 9 years old. And that was when I delivered on my promise to hire my mom and brought her in as a full-time person to just come alongside and be a set of helping hands. And this is the real key thing too, is that people often think having a nanny or having help in the home is about replacing you as a mother. And that's just not the case. It's about having a second set of hands to run errands, or maybe to do some food prep, or while I'm reading to one boy, she was helping me with the others. And so it actually allowed me to be more focused and give quality time to the kids and be a better, I think, better focused mom. And I was more productive in my business. And so when it made sense for us financially, which means I looked at the salary we were going to pay mom, and I said, if I have somebody to come in 8 hours a day for this salary, in that time, if I take 4 out of those 8 hours to work dedicated, can I multiply what I'm paying her and make back my money times 10? Well, the answer was yes. So that's how I look at hiring now as well, as if I'm going to replace myself in any particular role, practically speaking, which motherhood is never one of them, but there are roles in the home that we don't necessarily need to be playing. We don't have to be the ones cleaning the house. We don't have to be the ones doing the food prep. The things that only we can do as mothers is nurturing and parenting and training. Those things I never wanted anyone else to come in and do. And when I say training, I mean teaching the philosophies of our home and the values and the things that I knew only could come from me. So that doesn't mean that we don't have tutors now, or we don't have coaches and people that are training the boys in other areas. But we knew that I know that when I go to bring in a role now, I'm saying, okay, these are the areas in my business that I'm drained. And so if I were to replace myself and pay X salary for that, if I buy back my time there, that is an investment. And now I can go back and multiply whatever that investment is times 10 or 100. Does that make sense? And so I would love to know if this feels clear to you. But another key thing too, and this is sort of a side note, is that it's good to bring in the village. Surround yourself with friends who understand the journey, who maybe have some of their own goals. And then, I had friends where we would do like one day she would take all the kids and I would have a day to work. And then there was a day where she wanted to go and do whatever she was going to do. And I would take all the kids and she would go and have her day, or a half day. And so bring in the village and get people bought into the vision, and then just work the plan the work, be dedicated. And then again, I want to go back to this idea of unschooling. I understand my personality type is I don't need a lot of structure in order to thrive. And I have friends who are very stressed out if they don't have every part of their day and every part of their kids' schooling structured and planned out. And so here's something I want to encourage you to consider And we'll list some resources for you in the notes, but there's some great books. If you're unschooling or homeschooling, then there are some books that are hopefully going to set you free from this societal standard that's been created for us and put on us as a burden. I believe so strongly that we can parent and school our children in a way that doesn't look anything like what the school system, the education system has set for us. And so I understood that early on, and I was completely out of the box. I have so many different ways. And now that the boys are older, reading, writing, arithmetic were always very important to us, but also things like work ethic and character and family values and vision and going somewhere and being obedient to the Lord and the spiritual walk and faith. Those things were of core and critical importance. And so I spent a lot of time, especially in those early years and even now, just focusing on those things and not being so much into the curriculum. And then now with the boys, they're involved in the business, and we've been able to observe them, and they are beginning to understand what they really feel interested in, and they'll learn a lot more when they can drive their own education and pursue what speaks to them. So, for instance, Judah is very entrepreneurial, and he loves to think. He's very business minded, and he will drive by a store and he'll be like, I wonder how much they make in a day. And I wonder how much it costs them to make that product. And he's constantly that's just where his mind naturally goes. And so I've really brought him into the inner workings of our company, and he sits in with meetings with me, and he's learning a lot of the business. Seth, on the other hand, is very interested in building and engineering, and he loves to cook. And so we're getting him some chef classes online, and I'm going to have him start taking some CAD classes and drawing so that he can start architecting. And same thing for all the boys. And so just looking at what their interests are. And then guess what? As they're living their lives, there are opportunities to train up in math and then just taking some dedicated time. And if you think about it, the boys, for us, I'm like, man, they only need a couple hours at max, a couple days a week to sit down and practice certain areas of disciplines, like, for instance, penmanship. Every day they read the things that they're very interested in, and then they read the scriptures, and then we discuss ideas. And that's another thing. It's not just teaching them principles, but it's teaching them how to think, how to analyze, how to ask the right questions, so that when they have potential indoctrination from movies or society has teachings, they know how to critically think about interesting problems. And so bring your children into the journey. And I think a lot of the stress comes because we have learned that school has to look a certain way. But for me, the peace has come in knowing that I get to create my own path with my children. And that also meant unlearning a lot of things. And thankfully, I was homeschooled for most of my years. And so I had already had that sense of freedom, kind of out of the box thinking. And also, I would delegate to the kids, like, okay, for the next hour, you're going to work on this thing. And that would give me an hour to work. Or I'd say, go outside and play and don't come inside until I call you. And go find this particular kind of bug and go find as many different kinds of leaves that you can find and go explore nature. And I would give them tasks to do that would be adventuresome and allow them to play and have fun, but learn at the same time. And while they were doing that, I would get into my funnels, or I would be studying, or I would be formulating, or working on everything for the farmer's market, or I'm going to go make a batch of soap. We also have never had television. And so for me, I've always wanted the boys to be able to be creative with their minds. And so we did have a TV, I remember, that was given to us, and that was used for VeggieTales. And now the framework that we use, having a television in this house, it's for education and on occasion for entertainment. And so we don't have TV. We just occasionally will watch movies. And so it's good to kind of notice where your time is going. Sometimes we don't even realize how we're wasting time, but I didn't have any time to waste. So I was constantly dedicated to moving the vision forward. I hope this helps you. I would love to know what your questions are. please reach out to us. You can click on the link in the show notes, and there's so much more to explore about this topic. And I do want to dive deeper into some of these different areas like outsourcing and how to hire help in the home and why it's so important. And we can dive into Proverbs 31. As I wrap up here, just remember this one thing. And if you look at the Proverbs 31 woman, she had maidservants, plural. She had help in her home and she was providing for her household. And so we have this great life to look forward to. And truthfully, if you're already in a position to be able to hire, start taking tasks off your plate that you don't have to do in your home, such as cleaning your home, maybe grocery shopping. It could be having a house manager who can come in and make sure that there are just the practical needs of the home, like don't run out of toilet paper and these groceries and these particular things we never want to run out of. And so if you can afford that now, I always tell women, whatever it is that's stressing you out in your home, do what you can to bring help in the home. Get a second set of hands, and you don't have to do and be all of the things. And we've got backing from scripture in that. There's no way that the Proverbs 31 woman would have been able to accomplish all that she had if she was playing all of the different roles. And so again, do the things that only you can do, nurturing your children, training up in those core values and loving your children well. And, morning times for us and bedtimes are key, dinner times together. And so again, would love to hear from you, and we'll see you more on the inside. Thanks for listening to today's show. Hit subscribe or follow, and be sure to share this episode with a friend.